Hey, it's time for TV Skywriter.
I forgot. New camera. Hello, everybody. Welcome to TV Skywriter. This is the first time I'm doing a blab with my new video cam. So anyway, I'm Patricia A. Murray. This is TV Skywriter, an offshoot of the Durham Skywriter, Durham, North Carolina's online community paper. And today, we're going to talk about North Carolina Central University sports with Kyle Serba. Welcome to the show, Kyle.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So how did that game go last night? Okay, I was there to test out my new video camera.
Yeah.
And we were getting spanked there a little bit. So how'd the game end?
Well, it didn't end as well as we would have liked. We were down. This is baseball now. So we were at the Durham Athletic Park, and Norfolk State scored 4 runs in the first. So that's always an uphill battle. They scored 3 more in the third, and we ended up down 8-0 at one point.
Yeah.
But they battled back. They managed to pull to within 10-9 late in the game. So, got the crowd going, had a nice crowd on hand. But then they ended up pulling away from us. They hit a 3-run home run in the 8th inning and ended up winning 13-9. So, but, it was a good effort by the guys, considering that they were down 8-0. A lot of teams would have just folded up and said, well, let's go at it another day. But they just kept plugging away. And I think that shows what kind of character this team has. I'm really looking for big things from this baseball team this year. So I encourage people to go out and check them out. You can't beat the price of admission. It's absolutely free. Going out to the historic Durham Athletic Park where they filmed the movie Bull Durham. So it's a really nice venue to watch some quality Division I baseball.
You covered all the bases.
Oh, you threw in a baseball pun.
Oh, I couldn't resist that one. But I'm glad you mentioned that, because actually that was the next thing I was going to mention, the fact that it's free.
Yes.
And you're going to see some serious heads-up baseball if you go to see the NCCU Eagles, because I mean you can go see the Durham Bulls, you can go pay to see any baseball team. I mean, we have several. We have, of course, the minor league Durham Bulls, and there's some senior league games that you have to pay to attend, I believe. But when it comes to college baseball, of course, I guess there's Duke. I suppose they have baseball as well.
Yes, they do.
Actually, they play at the new ballpark.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And NCCU plays at the DAP, the older refurbished ballpark. But what I wanted to point out was that even though there are other teams that you can go see, you can pay to see them, you're going to see some serious heads-up baseball for free. So if you're a kid and you're learning baseball, if you're in a league, little league or whatever, you probably should check out the next level up. Actually, a couple levels up, and watch it for free and get some pointers, because you're going to see some serious double plays and some. In fact, I was talking to the young men. They have, what's that gun that you're testing the
the radar gun.
Yeah, the speed of the pitches.
Yep.
Yeah, they said that the Eagles pitcher, he was pitching like 85 miles an hour. That sounds really fast.
Yeah, well, that was their starting pitcher. They have a closing pitcher, Andrew Vernon, who they have a lot of major league scouts looking at right now. He throws in the mid 90s, so that's major league caliber speed right there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's really worth checking out, and again, it's free, and they have delicious concessions.
Yeah, they do a great job. Blue Note Grill. It's located right across the street from the ballpark, and for those who haven't been out there, it's just a real vibrant area too. Doing a lot of renovating in that area. They've got the farmers market. I mean, on a Saturday, I always try to get to the ballpark early so I can walk around the farmers market. After the ballpark, there's always nightlife right around the street with a lot of bars and restaurants in the area that have live music. It's just a wonderful atmosphere in that area. I'm proud to be a part of it.
Wonderful. I want to talk about your operations, Kyle. Now, when it comes to media, now I'm no longer with WNCU Radio, which is the radio station for North Carolina Central University, but I've been having you on my show for at least twice a year for several years. Yeah. And I've noticed your operations are really sophisticated. I mean, you were live streaming before I knew what live streaming was. you know. So I want to ask you about your setup. I don't know how to ask you because I don't know all the technical terms, but in terms of keeping the sports fans, how they're able to watch the game at home without watching your standard, you know, cable TV. How do you do it, and what do you do exactly?
All right. Well, obviously, technology has changed the game for us and how we disseminate information. I was in the business in in the early 90s, let's say. I started here, as Danielle asked, I started here in 1994. So at that point, we were still mailing press releases. So, now with email and the internet, we've been able to establish our own website. So in years past, when we were dependent upon newspapers to tell our stories and TV stations and radio stations to actually broadcast our games, because of the technology, we don't have to depend on those media entities any longer. So we can stream audio. Right now, we stream audio for free. So, and also you don't need a radio any longer because most people have these little devices right here that we're attached to 24/7, and you can listen to games and you can watch games. In fact, I was watching our men's basketball game at the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference tournament last night on my cell phone while I was working the baseball game. So you no longer need to be listening to a radio or sitting in front of a TV in order to enjoy a broadcast. So we do audio.
I'm trying to understand this. So if you're an alum or whatever, and you want to watch any of the games, do you watch from a particular website? I mean, where do they go to watch the games?
Yeah, well, you would go to NCCUEaglePride.com, and from there would be links to different events. We partner with a third party, Stretch Internet, because they specialize in that. So we'll set up everything on site, and then we'll make a connection through the internet to Stretch Internet, and then they put it out through their servers, and then we just link to that. So any fan that wants to either listen to or watch our games would go to NCCUEaglePride.com.
Okay.
Right now, because of the technical ability, I mean, you need some pretty strong bandwidth in order to stream video. So right now we are only streaming for volleyball, as far as video streaming, volleyball, football, and men's and women's basketball, because when you talk about a baseball game or a softball game, we use wireless internet at those venues, and it's just not strong enough in order to send video. So we're just doing the free audio streaming for those other events.
And is that what Mike Wood was doing yesterday?
Yes, Mike Wood, a wonderful alum, very passionate about NCCU and loves broadcasting NCCU sports. And we really appreciate it.
The setup was so interesting. He had a laptop and a little mixer.
Yeah.
And a mic, and he was able to broadcast to, I guess, like you said, it was going through the computer to the website.
Yeah, it was directly going through the computer to Stretch Internet, and then they send it out. Yeah, and that's actually there's been times where we didn't have a very sophisticated setup. Where again, I've taken my cell phone, I went down to Radio Shack and bought like a little $10 headset with a microphone, plugged it into the jack on my cell phone, and broadcasted the game just using my cell.
Wow.
So it could be as basic as that. And you can be as sophisticated as you'd like. But nowadays, again, with the technology, you really don't need to be that sophisticated.
That's really cool. And in fact, I don't know if you would welcome this, but I would welcome anyone local who wants to learn how to broadcast on a budget. Because what's cool about NCCU, with it being an HBCU, I mean, you guys don't have millions and billions of dollars to spend. And I learned a lot from you just watching how you do things. It's a lot more, to me, realistic than watching like the Durham Bulls or the people who have the zillion-dollar setups. Right.
Yeah, you don't need all that. I mean, when I was hired back in '94 with Julius Chambers, he told me, "Look, you got to be resourceful. We don't have a big budget, but you got to make the most of what you have." And I've really taken pride in being able to do that here at NCCU. And I don't think a lot of people realize that we are a limited resource institution because I feel that we put out such a good product. on the field, in the classroom. You know, that speaks a lot to the administration and the student athletes that we have here.
Awesome. There's a question for you, Kyle. Let's see.
Yeah.
Clarissa asks, what advice would you give a parent of a child interested in playing football at a Division I school? A friend of mine has a son who's number 3 in Alabama and wants to go to UAB. What tips would you give?
Wow. Well, number one, I'd say make sure they're hitting the books because, you know, a lot of these schools, they're going to have admissions requirements. So if you don't meet those academic admissions requirements, you're not going to be eligible to play on any level. And of course, those requirements are even higher at a Division I level. So, and you also need to go to the NCAA eligibility center. So if they haven't done so, depending on what year they are in school, they need to make sure that they do a little Google of NCAA eligibility center so that they can make sure that they are in that system, because anyone that's going to be recruiting a student athlete needs them to go through the NCAA eligibility center so that they can check to make sure that they have the class work that they need, the grades, the test scores, making sure that they're going to check their amateurism. So they need to make sure that they go through the NCAA eligibility center. And there's a lot of useful information there as well for prospective student athletes on the college level.
I would also suggest, not being a parent and not being the best at sports, at knowing about sports, I would say the books first, definitely.
Yeah.
But I would think that if you have a student who is into the books, doing what he's supposed to be doing, he's probably going to be less likely to be out doing mischievous type things that you. Unfortunately, I've seen these young people lose their college scholarships and get in trouble because they're not where they're supposed to be, doing what they're supposed to be doing. And it's child silliness, you know?
Yeah, it happens. I mean, that's the age. I think, you know, that's the challenge for any parent and even for us. I mean, when we get our student athletes here at NCCU, let's face it, they're still at that age where they could be a little mischievous. And we are kind of their family away from their family. So we try to do our best to mentor them and put our arms around them and make sure that they have the resources and the guidance that they need to make sure that they stay on a positive path.
You know, I have another question for you, Kyle. I have to ask this one. Okay. The young folks are so sophisticated, their knowledge of technology. Do you have any advice for young people who might make an easy mistake and misrepresent themselves online? What I'm trying to say is sometimes kids put stuff online that can totally, they don't realize that people are looking at their online profile.
Right.
And
it's gotten better. I think the big key is for education. The way we do it here is we don't tell student athletes, hey, you can't get on Twitter or, you know, Instagram or Snapchat or anything like that, because let's face it, they're going to do it. It's a part of life now. So the key is to educate them on how to properly use it, because a lot of them, at least they used to think that, oh, well, I'm just having a private conversation with my friends. Well, no, I mean, it's a public conversation. There are more privacy, you know, tools that you can use now to make things private. But what we always tell them is, look, this is your brand. Just like Nike has a strong brand, McDonald's, whatever it is, this is your brand. You need to take care of it. You need to manage it, and you need to use it for good. Because when you leave NCCU and you're looking for a job, one of the places they're going to look to check is, they're just not going to look at your resume and say, oh, yeah, this person's good. They're going to do their homework, and they're going to check on social media, and they're going to see what type of person you are. And unfortunately, good or bad, they're going to make a judgment based on sometimes your Twitter account or the pictures you post on Instagram or Snapchat. So you might as well use that as a positive resource. And so I think it's going away. Go ahead. I think, you know, we've used to have a lot more troubles than we have now. I think the student athletes and the students in general, they are more educated and they are more aware on what they should and shouldn't be doing. Are they still making mistakes? Sure. They're young people. They're going to make mistakes, but it has gotten a lot better. And I want to, you know, continue to educate them on the proper uses of social media.
Right, because these shirtless photos of the young folks holding guns and whatnot, that's probably not going to get you into Harvard or Howard or a good job. But another thing I noticed, though, I'm on Periscope every now and then. And naturally, I like to see what's happening locally. And I have seen some, I won't say what school, but I have seen some local youngsters, college youngsters on Periscope being inappropriate and kind of ignorant. And so, they weren't athletes. I could tell they were not student athletes because it was 3 a.m. And I can't imagine that an athlete would be up that late, knowing how hard they have to work. I could be being naive, but I'm just saying,
they would probably have to be up at 6 for their morning workout. So if they're up at 3, they're not going to be very effective. So, that's part of the benefit of being a student athlete is you're so busy during the day between your academic commitment, the practices, workouts, study hall, all the other things. By the time it gets to, midnight, they're ready to crash. So there's only so much trouble they can find. And usually when it's between, midnight and 4 or 5 in the morning, that's where if you're looking for trouble, you can find it.
Wow. Now let's get back to sports.
Okay.
A lot of people are saying, okay, it's either football or basketball season. But when you look at the website, you realize there's a lot more going on than just basketball right now. I noticed that there's baseball, softball, golf, tennis. Did I miss any?
Track and field.
Oh, track and field. Okay, is that cross-country track or what kind of track is going on right now?
Right now we are starting our outdoor season actually this weekend out at UNC Wilmington. So, it's been a busy week. With basketball, officially the basketball season ended, unfortunately, last night with the men's team losing in the MEAC quarterfinals to Norfolk State. It's on the spring sports now. We've got golf has already started. They just finished a tournament out in Myrtle Beach this past weekend. Women's tennis actually has a match later on today. If you're in the area at 3:00 this afternoon, the women's tennis team will be in Arrow. There's a softball doubleheader. The Lady Eagles are hosting Howard University down at Parkwood Athletic Field in Durham, starting at 1:00. Yeah, baseball hits the road. They play A&T in Greensboro on Friday and Saturday. So spring sports are they're in full swing.
So someone was asking, in fact, Danella, I remember you. How are you, Danella? She's asking if NCCU has a lacrosse team. Is there lacrosse?
Yeah, no, we do not have a lacrosse team. I know a while back there was some push to try to get lacrosse, and they actually had a lacrosse club team, but it was not officially part of intercollegiate athletics. It wasn't a varsity team sport. We're constantly looking and evaluating ourselves as a department, and especially with the sport offerings. And we went through a review of that last year. And actually, out of that review, we ended up eliminating women's bowling, and we will be looking to add women's golf in the next few years. We did consider some other sports. Lacrosse was one of the ones that we considered. We looked at soccer, but right now, those sports, they're really not cost effective for us. So we were actually looking for ways to reduce our budget because, as we talked about earlier, we are in a situation where we're a limited resource institution. So when you start adding sports like a soccer or a lacrosse, then those are some expensive sports, and you got to make sure that you have the financial backing before you jump into doing that.
I didn't know soccer would be expensive. I just
soccer is very expensive, and mainly, believe it or not, it's mainly because of insurance. Women's soccer is, as far as the injury rate, is pretty close behind football. It's hard to, people don't necessarily think of soccer as being an impact sport, but there are a lot of knee injuries in women's soccer, and the insurance for that is very high.
Wow. I have to ask about wrestling because a friend of mine told me to ask you why NCCU doesn't have wrestling. He says that's very cheap. You just need a mat.
It's not. Nothing is that cheap. I would say actually NCCU used to have a wrestling team back in the 70s and earlier. They had a wrestling team, but lately wrestling. I'm sure your friend is familiar. If he's a fan, he or she is a fan. that wrestling has taken a hit mainly because of gender equity. That was one of the first sports that they were looking at as far as, when they were cutting sports, wrestling took a heavy hit when gender.
Oh, because there's no women's wrestling, right? Is that what you mean?
Well, yeah, because it's a high number. First of all, there are a lot of wrestlers. When you have a team, you don't have a team of just 4 or 5 wrestlers. There's a lot of wrestlers, and it's men's wrestling. So when you try, gender equity says that you have to have a comparable amount of sport offerings in relation to your student enrollment. So, for example, at North Carolina Central University, it's close to 70% female. It's about 65% female as far as the student body, whereas the athletic offerings are probably only about 45% female. So we are working towards being able to offer more women's sports. So wrestling would not be one of those that we would consider mainly for that reason.
Have you got any suggestions from female athletes as to what you could add?
Well, we went through that. We're looking at, we're going to be adding women's golf here in a couple of years. The main reason for that, we had women's bowling, but there are no high school women's bowling teams. So it was a challenge to recruit, and more we're trying to, again, be cost effective by recruiting in state, because when we're offering scholarships, it's a lot easier to be able to afford an in-state scholarship versus an out-of-state scholarship. So it just made sense for us to switch over to women's golf, where there are several women's golf programs in the state of North Carolina in the high school system. So,
okay. Now, Marietta, I did say Danella. That is Danella Crafts, but her name is Marietta. She was asking. We were just talking. You might have missed it. We were talking about the importance of keeping the young people safe on social media, but she was asking if social media plays a part of players' connective community. But you kind of do that with your online presence when you do the games and whatnot. I suppose you promote it with social media?
We do. I mean, obviously, we're heavily involved in social media. I promoted this conversation on Twitter as well. So, but we encourage our student athletes to communicate through social media. I mean, it's one thing for let's say the athletics Twitter account to say, hey, there's a tennis match today, come out and support them. But it's a whole other thing if one of our women's tennis student athletes says, hey, we've got a match today. It would be great to see a lot of NCCU fans there. And if they reach out directly, there's more of a personal connection.
So they're like ambassadors.
What's that?
So they're like ambassadors in a way.
They are. That's the whole point. That whether they want to be or not, they're ambassadors. Being a student athlete has such a greater responsibility than an average student. They're placed on a higher pedestal because it's obvious in the media. If there's a student, let's say a student gets pulled over for DWI, right? We certainly hope that doesn't happen. That's not even something that's going to hit the news. But if that student is a student athlete, that's going to be headline news.
No, you're right.
So
you're absolutely right.
They have a higher voice. So when they speak and they can speak directly to their peers, I think it means a lot more. And I think it has a greater impact. So do they have the ability to reach their community and their network of peers? They certainly do. And we encourage them to do that and do it, again, in a positive manner, understanding the responsibility that once you have their attention, you have to make sure that you're treating that with respect, because you don't want to mess up. At the same light, you don't want to say, hey, come out to a party tonight that we're having. And it's midnight before a match the next day. I mean, you've got to be responsible about how you handle that social media access.
Now Marietta's asking if there's any trollers and if you have to worry about. Yeah. I thought you were at a higher level as a university. You probably don't ever get trolled, right? No,
I mean, that's the downside of it is, there are bullies out there and you are a target. People see you and they can reach you easily through social media. So are they out there? Most certainly they're out there. And again, that's part of the education, is we try to let them know how to respond or how not to respond. We've seen it several times where student athletes are just getting attacked on social media. You can imagine it. Let's say you're a basketball player and you miss you miss a free throw that could have won a game for you. There's going to be people out there that are going to kind of treat you badly on social media, and you have to be strong enough to hopefully just ignore it.
I swear, I know I sound naive. I did not think that would happen to college athletes.
It certainly does.
I'm used to seeing them put on pedestals. I rarely hear. I guess now that there's social media and it's so popular now and personalized, I guess people can actually reach out and troll their targeted players. I just didn't even think about that.
Yeah, and that's why some of the larger programs do ask their student athletes not to be engaged during their season, as far as actively involved in social media, because there is that element out there. Do I think that's realistic? Yeah, probably not. They're going to find a way of staying connected with their peers through social media, but maybe they have a different account. Maybe they don't put their name and their brand on that particular account that they use, but we just try to educate them on how to handle that stuff properly.
Oh, okay. I guess they could be Pookie on the site, have another account where they're Pookie or Junebug.
Is that what yours is? Are you telling on yourself? Is your alias?
Well, I did have a cat named Pookie.
Okay.
I know that's a popular name, as is Junebug, at least in certain communities. But Tachi has a question. We did sort of cover this, but she did ask, did it also follow that being a student athlete, you also have to monitor your actions more than the average student? And you did tell us how they are protecting their brand, in essence.
Certainly.
They're online.
I mean, people are familiar with them. They watch them in action. They see all their name and all the information that we're putting out, whether it's on the website or if they see them in person. So yeah, they're definitely followed a little more closely than the average student is. And again, it's a responsibility that we tell them, hey, you got to make sure that when you're a student athlete now, you're not just representing yourself. You're representing, the university, the athletics department, your coach, your hometown, your family, because, if you do something good, you're going to get publicity for it. But guess what? If you do something bad, you're going to get publicity for it. That's just the nature of being a student athlete at a Division I athletics program.
Now I want to jump back into broadcasting. So you were at the baseball game last night,
mm-hmm.
and you were doing the announcing and the hilarious special effects. I love when they hit the foul ball and you have the glass breaking. That's fun. Right. And of course, the Eagle sound is awesome.
Yeah, well, we just do that just to have a little fun. Because of our limited staffing, then occasionally I'll have to do the in-house public address announcing. And yeah, we've got some sound effects just to have a little fun. Baseball is one of those sports that, besides the game itself, there's a lot of other entertainment. I mean, if anybody that goes to a Durham Bulls game, they know that there is entertainment in between innings, and there's a lot of food and drinks and other things that goes on at the ballpark besides baseball. And so we try to bring a little bit of that element as well. We certainly don't do it as well as the Durham Bulls. They're one of the best at it in the business, but it's good to have a little fun, and we do those kind of things and try to make it entertaining for the fans to enjoy the game.
So can you tell us about your team? So while you're doing baseball,
mm-hmm.
MEAC last night in Virginia, and so who are the members of your team in terms of who operates the cameras and cover the other sports while you're doing baseball or whatever?
Sure. Well, for the first probably 15 years of my career here at NCCU, I was the only full-time sports information person. So
wow.
It was me, and I had a lot of wonderful volunteer students. And we still depend a lot on our students. We do now, as a Division I program, we have 2 full-time sports information assistants. Jonathan Duran, who is a graduate of South Carolina State, and he started with us last year. He handles baseball, men's basketball, and all of our broadcast media. And then we have Kevin Buchek, who is a graduate of Barton here in North Carolina. And he handles volleyball, women's basketball, softball, and tennis. And so we divide up the sports. That's how we manage the athletics department as far as media coverage, is we split them up. So I'm responsible for football, golf, and cross-country track and field. So we share the load. But we also help each other in situations like you mentioned last night. We had a softball game earlier in the day, so Kevin was working that, and Jonathan was in Norfolk, Virginia with the MEAC basketball tournament with our men's team last night. He was broadcasting and provided coverage of that. So I covered baseball for him. So it is a true team effort. I am very proud to say that we work a lot with our students. When I was a student at Utica College in upstate New York, I had a lot of experience, and that's what led me to this career. So I really believe that our students need that kind of opportunity so that when they leave NCCU, they may have a career path in sports information or a related field. And now they actually have some work experience to put on their resume. So we have interns and we have volunteers, but a lot of the game day stuff that people see for football and basketball, as far as camera operators and instant replay and things like that, they're done by our students. And so it's really a win-win. They get experience, and we get some free help. So it works out for everybody. And again, it's something that I'm prideful of, because I've had several of the students that have come through as volunteers in my office that are now working in the profession. Some of them on the professional level, and some of them right here in the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference. In fact, Brian Harvey, who volunteered with me for 4 years here at NCCU, he worked at Hampton, he worked with Miami, and he's the SID at Bethune-Cookman, and he hired one of my former assistants, Andrea Wheeler, who was a student athlete here and then volunteered in my office. I hired her full-time as an assistant, and then she went to Bethune-Cookman last year as well. So that's kind of one of the things that I'm really proud of, is just having the opportunity to work with the students here at NCCU.
That's great. And when you said SID, I guess it's Sports Information Director, right?
That's correct. Yeah, sorry.
A lot of young people, especially those, I'm not even going to categorize anybody, but I'll just say so many young people say they don't want to work for free. They don't want to volunteer. You just proved why it's a good idea to volunteer. That hands-on experience, you just can't beat that.
You can't. And what I always tell them is, you can go to college for 4 years, and you can graduate with a 4.0 GPA. But that GPA takes up one line on your resume. How are you going to fill the rest of your resume? And if they aren't volunteering, especially during their college career, they are missing out an opportunity, because the people that they're competing with for jobs, they are volunteering, and they're going to have a full resume of work experience the first day that they leave college. So if they aren't volunteering in college, let's face it, they can afford to volunteer in college, because once you leave college and those student loans start hitting you and you got to pay the rent and all the other bills, you're right. At that point, it's very difficult to volunteer. So I encourage them, please do so, and do so early. Again, the ones that have been the most successful are the ones that have come to me as freshmen and sophomores. If we can get 2 to 3, maybe 4 good years of experience before they leave. I can't tell you how many times that people have come to me and said, I'd love to get involved in what you do and learn about what you do. Can I volunteer? And I'm like, sure. What year are you? And they're like, I'm a second semester senior. So they're getting ready to graduate.
Wow, sounds too late, isn't it?
Glad to help you, but there's only so much I'm going to be able to do in a month. It's kind of almost too late at that point. So again, if they have any interest in it whatsoever, I encourage them to get involved. And the other thing I tell people is, look, even if it doesn't work out, let's say you volunteer for a semester and you don't like it. Well, guess what? That's one thing you can cross off your list of things that you thought you would be interested in. And now you're narrowing your focus of a real career. So, I don't think there's any experience that you can have that isn't valuable. So yes, volunteer, please.
That's really, really good advice. I also wanted to point out, I wanted to just tell people to check out your website, because I think anyone putting together a website for sports, for a school, or for young people, whatever, could learn a lot just by exploring your website. I'll tell you what's on the website. Just a few things. I mean, I expected to just see the list of what's happening this week in sports. But not only that, you have a men's calendar, a women's calendar, a composite calendar. Yeah. You've got photos, videos, where you can buy your gear and your swag and your T-shirts and your personalized banners. Yeah. Your caps, history tips, not history, history tidbits. Yeah. Like you're pointing out that game what was that game? What was that famous game? NCCU and the Secret Game.
Secret Game. Yeah, that was that's a long story. If you're not familiar with the Secret Game, I would encourage you to just do an internet search of the Secret Game and Duke and NCCU. And the story behind it is it's simply remarkable. There's so much information out there now, and to think that it was a secret game, because it was an illegal game that these two teams played during, a highly charged, racially segregated South. And those two teams kept it secret for many, many years until those players and coaches started passing away, and they felt that they needed to share that story. Just a remarkable story. So if we don't have enough time to really dive into it, maybe that can be a separate, maybe another day I can come back and we can just focus on talking about the Secret Game. I think that would be fascinating.
That would be great. But you've piqued their interest, so I know they're going to look it up. Yeah. But I also want to point it out that in addition to the history tidbits, there's an e-newsletter you can subscribe to, photo gallery, your link to Twitter, which I thought was real clever, how to join the e-varsity club. I'm not sure what that is. I guess that's
for all of our former student athletes. It's a way that they can stay connected with the university. Yeah.
Nice. And I'd love the student athlete of the month. That's a nice profile.
Thank you. Yeah, we take credit for that too. Because I mean, again, so many people see our student athletes just on the playing field, and they don't realize all the remarkable things that they're doing off the field and in the classroom. So that's kind of our opportunity to talk about what they're doing outside of their sport. Now, yeah, we're going to talk about their sport and how they played that month in their sport. But there's some criteria to it as well. You have to have a certain GPA and be involved in community service and things like that. So it gives us an opportunity to tell people more about our student athletes.
Okay. I want to thank you so much, Kyle, for being on the show. And also, I'd like to thank everyone making comments. I didn't read them all because I'm still learning this process of, looking up at the camera, looking at the guests, reading, the questions on this side and the comments on that. So if I missed a few, sorry about that. I do want to thank Danielle for listing NCCU EaglePride.com is the website. It's a beautiful website. Check it out for sure. So what's the next game you'll be covering?
Wow. I'll be checking out some tennis today. Again, they're at 3:00 right here. My office is just steps away from the tennis court, so I'll be out there checking them out. Hopefully it's a nice day outside. I'm sure it is. And then I'll be going to Greensboro tomorrow with the baseball team. My colleague, Brian Holloway, the sports information director at North Carolina A&T, he's still at Norfolk in the conference tournament because his women's basketball team is playing in the semifinals tomorrow. So, we help each other out. So I'm going to be going there and filling in for him and keeping the stats for the baseball games this weekend. So I'll be in Greensboro on Friday and Saturday.
Awesome. If you want to keep up with NCCU sports, like I said, and even if you have nothing to do with that at university, if you're involved in sports at all, I think you could learn a lot just by seeing how Kyle Serba and his team operates in terms of, getting the news out about sports and just really elevating, to me, sports information to an art. Seriously.
Great. Thank you very much. I appreciate you saying that. And thanks
Absolutely.
to everybody for all your comments and for watching. And yeah, please come out and check out our spring sports in action. Again, they're all free to attend, and our student athletes would really love to see some NCCU fans out there.
Awesome. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to end the show now, and then we can have folks jump in and ask questions and shoot the breeze. So I'll end it now by saying thank you so much for watching TV Skywriter. I'm Patricia A. Murray, your host. Be sure to read the Durham Skywriter. That's durhamskywriter.com. That's what this TV show is an what's the word? Offspring of, whatever the word is. Anyway, you have a beautiful day, and I will see you next time. Ciao for now.